Okay. Before we go to some more dinim of Chol Hamoed, just to mention as follows. Tomorrow night again is Friday night. But it's not Yom Tov, it's Chol Hamoed. So it's basically primarily Shabbos with some Yom Tov twists to it, so to speak. So number one, let's say, might of tomorrow night, we don't start L'chun Ranana because emphasis on Yom Tov, but we start Mizmor LeDavid, right before L'chodeidi. So we skip the first four paragraphs, and we go first to Mizmor LeDavid, straight to all the L'chodeidis, that's our custom, all through the L'chodeidis. And the Shemona Esrei would be a regular Friday night Shemona Esrei, except you add Ya'aleh V'Yaveh in the Shemona Esrei. If you forgot, it's a regular Shabbos night of Shemona Esrei, except you add Ya'aleh V'Yaveh. If you forget Ya'aleh V'Yaveh, like we learned last night, then you would have to repeat the Shemona Esrei. Candle lighting is like a regular Friday night candle lighting. So it's a regular La'adik Ner Shel Shabbos, or as Chabad we say Shabbos Kodesh. It's a regular Friday night candle lighting. If you're eating in the Sukkot, then you have to light Shabbos candles in the Sukkot. Now what you need to be careful with, on Shabbos, you're not allowed to bring the candles back into the house even after they're extinguished. While they're still burning, for sure you can't carry them back. But even after they're extinguished, they're completely muktzah, and therefore you would not be allowed, let's say you have an expensive candelabra that you light the Shabbos candles with, and you're going to bring it into the sukkah to light candles, and now after eating you don't want to leave it outside in the sukkah overnight, so now you want to bring it in. So you wouldn't be allowed to bring it in at all. It's completely muktzah. So therefore what people do, if they're lighting in the sukkah, they'll light the tea lights or something, it is that they don't care.
What if it's windy?
If it's windy, but the problem is if you're eating in the sukkah, you have to bench licht in the sukkah. So you try to do something to protect the licht a little bit, that's safe, fireproof, that the window, but you have to bench licht in the sukkah. If it's for sure going to go out, then you have to light them in the house, because you're going to light them in the sukkah, they're going to go out in a second, then you're not getting the mitzvah anyway. So you have to light them in the house, but preferably you should try to arrange something that they should be able to be. What? If you're eating in the sukkah, you have to bench licht where you're eating, yeah? Generally it says you're supposed to light candles in the sukkah, but again, if somebody's not eating at home, Friday night or the first night of Sukkot, so why are they lighting in the sukkah? They're lighting, they have to stay a few minutes by the candles to benefit from it. By the time they come home, the candles are probably out. So if you any time you light even during the year, if you're going somewhere else to eat and you light Shabbos candles, and the second Shabbos candles you light them, you leave, and when you return home, the candles are extinguished, you didn't get the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles, plus you made a bracha in vain. Because the purpose of Shabbos candles is to benefit from them. So you have to benefit either before you leave the house, or when you come home, make sure the candles are still burning, that you're benefiting from the candles. Otherwise, you didn't do the mitzvah of candle lighting. The whole purpose is to benefit from the candles, not like Hanukkah. Hanukkah, you're not allowed to benefit from the candles. Shabbos light, you have to benefit from the candles.
If it's right outside the sukkah, no difference.
Again, you have to be able to see them. You have to be able to see the candles. Now in the benching tomorrow night, you have Ritzei and Ya'aleh V'Yaveh. So it's interesting, if you forgot Ritzei, let's say Friday night, if you forgot Ritzei, you would have to bench over. But if you forgot Ya'aleh V'Yaveh Friday night, then you wouldn't have to bench over, because Yom Tiv, there's an obligation to eat a meal. Chol Hamoed, there's no obligation to eat a meal. So let's say today you washed for Hametzi and you're eating in the sukkah and you benched and you forgot to say Ya'aleh V'Yaveh. So because Chol Hamoed, there is technically no obligation to eat bread. So then if you forgot Ya'aleh V'Yaveh, you don't have to repeat the benching. Yom Tiv, there's an obligation to eat bread. So Yom Tiv, if you leave out Ya'aleh V'Yaveh in the benching, then you have to repeat the benching. Chol Hamoed, there's no obligation to eat bread. So therefore, if you forgot Ya'aleh V'Yaveh and Chol Hamoed, you don't repeat it. So Friday night, So the Shabbos obligation there is. The Yom Tov obligation there isn't, to eat bread. So therefore, if you forget to say, you have to repeat the benching. If you forget Yalav V'Yava, you don't. You don't. So that's as far as the benching. What?
So if someone's going to be a guest at somebody else's sukkah, you're going to be a guest at somebody else's sukkah, is it better to light with them and their sukkah?
You can either light with them in their sukkah, or you could participate money-wise, give them a few cents that you should be part of their lighting. Or again, you could light in your own sukkah, providing you stick around for a little while, or you make sure the candles are long enough that when you come home they're still burning. But again, light the candles and leave and come back after they're out and know what?
If you forgot to say, when you remember Yalav V'Yava, you have to repeat Yalav V'Yava the second time around also.
If you're repeating the benching because you forgot to say, then you say Yalav V'Yava. It's not a hefsek. Then you would say Yalav V'Yava. But if you forgot Yalav V'Yava the second time, then you don't repeat the benching.
Is there any reason someone shouldn't use a 24-hour memorial candle for Shabbat light? It's the same, it just lasts longer.
If somebody wants to light a gallon bottle of olive oil and light the candles with olive oil for burn 10 years, it's fine, yeah? But then you would have to extinguish it for next Friday night to light again.
The candle has to be light on the whole night?
No, it has to be basically that at nightfall you benefit from it. The best thing, according to Jewish law, if the candles are still burning for the entire meal, even for benching the candles, that's the best thing. If not, at least when you make Kiddush. If not that, at least you benefit from the candles any amount of time. But the best thing is for the candles, they don't have to burn a whole night. They have to burn, preferably for the entire meal, because that's the purpose of it. Okay, Shabbos day is again, it's a regular Shabbos Shachris with Yalav V'Yava in the Shemon Esrei, and then you have complete Hallel. Our custom is we don't say Hoshainis on Shabbos. Sunday we're going to say double, but Shabbos we don't say Hoshainis. Many people have a minute to read. After Torah reading, they would read on Chol It's the book of Koheles. Chabad doesn't, Svardim don't, a lot of Chassidus don't, but many people do read the book of Koheles on Shabbos Chol Sukkot. But that's as far as that goes. Now, coming back to Chol we have a few minutes. Okay, so the simcha of Chol Hamoed is very, very powerful. To the extent, I'll give you an example. You're not allowed to do a wedding, halachically, not a custom. Halachically, you're not allowed to get married during Chol Hamoed. You're not allowed to get married on Yom Tiv. You're not allowed to get married on Chol Hamoed either. And the Gemara says why? Why you're not allowed to get married to a chuppah, a wedding Chol Hamoed? Because a ma'arvin simcha b'simcha. We learn now from a pasuk that you're not allowed to mix two simchas together. So because there's a mitzvah of samachta b'chagecha, there's a mitzvah to have simcha on Yom Tiv, having a wedding is an additional simcha, and you're not allowed to mix simchas together. So if it's halachically actually, according to certain opinions biblically, that you can't get married during Chol Hamoed. Okay, because again, it's such a strong simcha of Yom Tov. What? Shaveh brachos you can make. Shaveh brachos you can make because it's a separate simcha. It's not the simcha that's taking a simcha by itself. It's an extension of the chuppah that you had before. In fact, there's a whole interesting shaila, by the way. What happens if somebody got married 3 days before Pesach? 5 days before Pesach. And now, the night of the Seder, you make a Shaveh brachos. So then you have a very interesting question, because you're not allowed to add on to 4 cups. So the question is, there's a whole procedure in halacha. The best thing is not to make a Shaveh brachos by the Seder, because it can get complicated what you do. Like when do you bench, when you make Shaveh brachos, then you're eating an extra cup, and, so it's a complicated issue. Yeah, but Sheva Brachas needs another cup, so where do you get the other cup? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's not the normal way.
You do it right there?
No, because you have to do it on benching. And benching, you can't do it until...
Everybody's having a cup anyway, so that extra cup that you drink by someone else.
It doesn't work that way. You have to mix the cups. There's a way of doing it, but now Sukkot is not a problem. If you want to make, let's say somebody got married before Sukkot, and you want to make a Sheva Brachas in the Sukkah in the middle of, you could do it. You have bench and you have another cup and you do Sheva Brachas, like a regular Sheva Brachas. Pesach is much more complicated. Okay, we are also discussing about cutting nails. We just mentioned briefly yesterday that you're not allowed to cut your nails on Chol Hamoed unless if you cut them right before Yom Tov. But there are poskim that say, we didn't have enough time yesterday, there are poskim that say that let's say you cut it 2 days before Yom Tov. You cut your nails 2 days before Yom Tov started. And the reason you didn't cut them Erev Yom Tov because there was nothing to cut. So then the Aruch HaShulchan and others hold, and then if that's the case, you cut them really for Yom Tov. It's not that the nails grew, you really should have cut them before Yom Tov, and you didn't, and therefore the halacha is you're not allowed to cut them during Chol Hamoed. But if you cut them a few days, 2 days, a day before, whatever, 3 days, that you cut the nails before Yom Tov, and the reason why you didn't cut them at Yom Tov was because there was nothing to cut, so then you would be allowed to cut your nails during Chol Hamoed. But let's say for certain mitzvahs, let's say if a woman has to go to mikveh, she can cut her nails Chol Hamoed. Or if a boil needs a sharp nail, a male that does bris and needs to have one sharp nail to do the priya, and if he has to fix his nail to be able to do a bris on Sukkot, so then he would be allowed to do it because again it's Seirich Mitzvah. Now generally speaking, when the Isser of doing work on Chol Hamoed, let's give an example. Halacha speaks about you can't do tailoring during Chol Hamoed. You can't do laundry Chol Hamoed. So let's say tailoring, let's say somebody's button falls off. And you need it for Chol Hamoed, you need it for Yom Tov. Your button falls off and you need it. So then you could sew in the button. It's preferable that it's done what's called Ma'aser Hedyet, that not a professional one does it. You shouldn't bring it to a tailor to sew in the button. You should do it yourself. Or if something rips that could be fixed, that you need to fix. You cannot sew a new piece of clothing on Chol Hamoed. Let's say somebody brought a dress or a suit and they need to shorten the sleeves or whatever. That for sure you're not allowed to do Chol Hamoed. But what happens if something ripped and you want to fix it, the hem or whatever, button fell off, whatever. So then halacha says you should do it as what's called Ma'aser Hedyet. It should be done by a simple person, not a professional. Because again, it's less professional, so it's less considered a malacha. It's called, in halacha, it's called Ma'aser Hedyet versus, now if somebody is going to not do business and lose money, so then they're allowed to do it. What happens if somebody, we learned you're not allowed to cut your hair on Chol Hamoed unless if you could not, you couldn't because you didn't want to. That the situation was that you couldn't cut the hair before Yom Tov. But nevertheless, it says, let's say, other bodily hair, let's say if you trim your mustache, and your mustache is getting into, it's getting in the way, so you're allowed to trim your mustache on Chol Hamoed. Let's say a woman who shaves her legs or things like that, so that is allowed to be done Chol Hamoed. Okay, but cutting hair, beard, that's forbidden to do Chol Hamoed. Huh? No. No, not most poskim say no. There are poskim who want it. I don't Sfardim, I don't know. But until somebody shows me that Sfardim say, yeah, just because they say that Rabbi Vaad said doesn't mean anything to me. Everybody misquotes everybody. So if you tell me, show me openly where it says that Rabbi Vaad said you could do this, fine. Or another, Sephardic person. Just because people say it doesn't mean anything. Okay, what else is there? Just practical things. Okay, you can't do gardening, I told you. But if, let's say, you don't water your lawn, it's going to ruin the lawn, so then you would be allowed to water it Chol Hamoed. because anything that will lead to loss of money, then you would be allowed to do. Okay, now what happens if somebody, we learned you're not allowed, oh, it's time to, okay.